Hey guys, how you doing? Another episode of Men of Values, and I stopped doing this because I realized that I wasn't bringing much value with the things I was saying. Um, I tended at some point to follow off into being negative. I don't want to do that. I want to bring value and not spread negativity. Although some of the things I said were value, I addressed things that I thought were important for people to hear, but I came at it from a negative angle. So we're firing up the podcast again, and today I've got an old friend of mine. His name is Josh. Josh, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joshua Denelsbeck. Nice to be here. Scott and I met. I don't. We were just talking about that. Maybe it was like 9 years ago or so.
Yeah,
Did some recording back in the day, and then just kind of more recently caught up a little bit, messaging online, and happened to be down in the city. Thought it was a cool time we could stop by and do a little episode.
yeah. My mom, of course, she knew I did music, and then she worked with Josh, and then it was mentioned. Josh mentioned that he did music, and then she said, "Yeah, she'd meet my son." So we hooked up. We did a couple songs. It was two or maybe three. I can't remember. I know it was two.
Yeah,
There was that
I forget.
Jason Mraz, and then there was "Don't Blame Me." I thought we might have messed around and done something else, but "Don't Blame Me." That song, uh, I did try to polish the production a little bit because I realized the lyrical value to it. He said a lot of things that were way ahead of me. Like years passed, and I started to listen to it again and again later. Like every 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. I was like, man, this guy is smart as shit. Very intelligent, very in tune with what's going on in the world. So I'll post that. I'll put that in the description so you guys can check it out. It's a good song. The sounds are kind of dated, but the lyrics, it could damn near be written today. I mean, it applies today. So, anyways, like he was saying, we kind of separated. He actually he paid off your house,
Yep,
and then he moved up north,
yep,
started a farm.
yep.
That's like the dream. Start a
Working on
family,
it.
start a
Working on it.
family, and you go in your backyard, you shoot guns.
I can.
That is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I can. It's a nice thing. I was visiting some people in South Minneapolis today and saying, hey, it's a nice thing to be out there, and gunshots are just a positive thing. It's like, that's so and so over there shooting at something or doing a little target practice. You feel good about hearing the gunshots instead of feeling
Yeah.
like
So that, oh,
you have to look out and see
damn it.
what's going on. But yeah, loving it, man, loving it. I wanted to move to the country for years, and
Yeah.
I kind of joke. All it took to get my wife on board was a pandemic and massive civil
Oh,
unrest.
yeah. Civil
You know.
unrest.
So, anyways, not to harp on that, but that kind of that kind of got her looking into it. But I really wanted to do it. Honestly, first thing years back, it was like a Rogan episode where this guy was a vegan who had a bunch of health issues he developed, decided he needed to eat meat again. This was the doctor's recommendation, but he didn't want to just go buy factory farm meat or whatever. He decided he would hunt, and this
Yeah.
guy got to spot he would only eat what he hunted,
Perfect.
and that was his principle. But a lot of the conversation went around ideas of like being connected to your food, being connected to the cost of your food, that
Yeah.
there's a sacrifice involved when you're going to eat meat, stuff like that. Just started stirring things in me where I was like, you know what? I want to get some land and like raise our own meat. It was, where it first started. And then it's all kinds of stuff we might get to, might not get to in the conversation that kind of built in that through the years where, I bought some land. I'm hoping to develop some kind of permaculture farm setup. So do some aquaponics. I got a pond. If I can expand it, I can put fish in it, do some greenhouse growing, maybe geothermal greenhouses where you can grow all year, even in a cold climate. And then maybe if I could get to it, actually do some treatment work. So like bring people out into the country to do addiction recovery treatment and work on the farm and kind of do that side by side counseling while you're working, but then have also some curriculum and things that you do in addition to that.
I've got a buddy that works with veterans, and he's been setting up the same thing. It's like a nonprofit where he's
Yeah,
trying to take care of people that are having a hard time adapting to society after they come back, and that's we all know about that PTSD, and sometimes it's subtle and it can be quiet. Then next thing you know, that person is gone.
yeah,
So he's doing his best as a vet himself to be able to set up resources for everybody to be able to turn to him and lean on them when they're struggling. And he's built that up so much. He used to be a dispatcher for the state patrol.
Okay.
I know him through jujitsu, but just like you, it's like he's trying to think of a way that he can do something better to contribute to society and not just take a piece of society.
Yeah.
So one of the things, sidetracking off of that, one of the things that after we stopped recording and everything, that really made me think, damn, that is so cool, is when you paid off your house. How fast you paid off your house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a blessing. So we bought when the market was bottomed out after the housing bubble burst, and so that was 2009, 2010. I think we moved in. It was like spring of 2010, and it was a small foreclosure. We qualified for a lot more than what we looked for, but a big part of that was I was newly married, or within the first year of my marriage at that point, and my wife really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna figure
Make
it
it
out.
happen.
So we bought this small foreclosure, and we just started pumping everything into it. So it was like 90 with closing costs. So we put like 30 down to start. We basically always just lived off one income. So we saved one income, put it all into the house. Always kind of lived off one income until my wife actually was able to leave work. So she did work for a while after our first was born. But then when she was pregnant with our second, she ended up being able to go home because we had our house paid off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a castle. It was like, I used to laugh, like, because I think of those bumper stickers people get with, like, don't laugh, it's paid for. I was like, I need a sign like that in front of my house,
Exactly.
Because we lived completely debt free until we sold that. We had all that equity in that house, which was worth a lot more when we sold it than when we bought
by the
it.
time you sold it.
I mean, we put some money into it and stuff, and we had some blessings along the way that let us do more than we might have done with it. But in that, like, that made it so basically we moved that same kind of position when we went and bought the farm, where we didn't have a huge mortgage. We were able to put all that equity into it, and that allowed us to feel like, okay, this is manageable. We can still do this on one income.
Yeah.
And that, you hear that a lot, like, oh, but you can't live on one income, and it's like you can, right?
Yeah.
But there's a sacrifice. So what do you really want?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I see when we talk about meta values. It's living within your means. Make sure that you put some money aside to make moves like Josh did. I got my own story, but I'm not going to share that right now. But if you live within your means and you don't overstep it for show, I mean, you saw my sneakers. I got a problem with that, but I get them all at a discount, right? So be responsible with your stuff and have a plan. That's half of it. I mean, I saw a post on Facebook where it's like you spend money that's hard to earn, can't remember exactly, to impress people that don't give a shit about you, right? So Josh, on the other hand, loved his wife. His wife loved him and said, "Okay, we got a plan. I'm going to take care of this. Let's do it." So he wasn't being crazy, buying the brand new car, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. He was sticking to his plan. I think that's half the battle when it comes to men building their future is having a plan. I know I failed at that. My early years, I didn't go to college. I went to school for broadcasting, fresh out of high school, and I couldn't sit in a small room and act like I was happy talking to a microphone. I'm doing it now. Well, I got Joe here. But I went back to school for business because that's a broad application, so it's a good investment, and it turned out to do pretty well for the time that I spent and the money I spent. But I didn't have a plan, and Josh had a plan early on, and he worked it out with his wife, and they worked the plan, and they were responsible about it, didn't overextend, and now he's doing stuff that I would like to do. I mean, I would, to live up north off the grid a little bit, and
Yeah, we're far from off the grid for sure, but it's like it's a dream to lean in that direction.
Yeah.
So I mean, we got a well, and we have our own septic system. It's like, okay, we're gonna take care of our stuff. Our stuff. It matters how we're gonna treat it. We're pulling water out of the ground. Let's not dump chemicals. Let's not.
Yeah.
I can't say everything that was done there before I moved there, but it's not like it's never been like agricultural farming. It's been livestock. And so there's a hayfield. Oop, I'm bumping the microphone.
all good.
So there's a hayfield and some pasture, some wetland in the back, and that's where the pond is located, and a bunch of woods. And it's kind of just a nice, put some work into it. We could start keeping more animals out in the pasture, things like that. I did it with like portable electric fencing. So I did goats and pigs last year,
Yeah.
and butchered them at home. It's a huge process, but it was kind of like like this is what I came here for.
How did you learn how to do that?
YouTube? Well, okay, I was a chef for many years.
That's right. That's right.
So I knew how to cut the meat up.
Yeah.
But actually like dispatching the animal and the whole process of evisceration and everything, it's like that was all new to me. Seen a little bit of hunting with my dad when I was a kid, but I didn't really grow up with him, and we didn't have, I didn't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite the thing, man. And when you raise, like I was in there with those pigs every day, and they're kind of nice animals. If you're friendly with them,
not
and they're
like
not
a cat, but somewhere there.
when you got like a whole bunch of pigs, they get really kind of aggressive.
Yeah,
'Cause they fight for their food and stuff like that. But two pigs never ran out of food, never, happy. They'd nuzzle up to you when you go in there to do something with their food or their water or something like that. So it's definitely like an emotional.
Yeah.
It was like
When
it's
it's
an
time.
intense experience, but it's like
I've heard stories about
just
that.
kind of set your mind to it. Like this is what I'm gonna do. It's time to do this, and But yeah, it was funny because I remember that day it was Halloween.
Yeah.
I had I had COVID, and so I was like at the end of it, and it was like my last day of quarantine,
Yeah.
which now they've made it 5 days. So
Yeah.
I should have been off of it at that point, right? But so I'm like butchering pigs, and then my wife was going to this like trunk or treat thing with the kids. It was at the church, so it's like the next town over.
Here,
So-
take some real blood.
So she goes there, and my pastor sent something to me, and I was like, oh, I was like, yeah, or he sent, because my wife told him I was butchering pigs. So he's like, you're butchering pigs at home? I said, yeah. And he goes, on Halloween? I was like, yeah. And he goes, and you have COVID? And I said, yeah. He goes, that's so metal. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I had said, oh, I should put a post on Facebook of like me with the two pig heads on either side of me saying Happy Halloween.
Oh my god.
But my wife would not allow that. She did
Oh
not
my
think it was as
God.
funny as I thought it was. But, it's probably better judgment not to.
Yeah, but that would have been. I probably wouldn't have done it, but I would have done it just for me. But he has to make sure that the wife isn't upset and everything.
The irony of that, though, the funniest part, right? I said my pastor said that's so metal thing. I told him that, and that Courtney wouldn't let me do it. And then he said, I'll give you $1 if you do it.
What? No, sell out. God
Yeah,
damn it.
That was pretty
$1.
good. But
The thing that I get inspired by that story. I mean, I didn't know all the detail, but I knew the story ahead of time. Is that is some masculine shit. Wife wants to stay at home, take care of the kids, and you built a family. So it's not just like she wants to stay at home because she wants to relax. No, you guys built a family.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So she has her hands full, and you're taking care of business on the other end, and you built this life for you guys. That's manly shit, you guys. Manly shit is when we talk about masculinity. I don't like when people say toxic masculinity because you think of like Fonzie, something like that, or Andrew Dice Clay. No, that's not it. It's not being abrasive. It's taking care of business and being a strong man. And he's a prime example of what that is. So, respect to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment for sure. I try. I think I always kind of had a picture of it. Like you think back to like second grade, I did like a school paper on medieval Europe.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I read about like this idea of chivalry, the knights. And it's like I've always aspired to something. And my dad and I are good now, but I didn't grow up with them. And my stepdad was there, and he worked hard for my family, but I didn't have that father-son relationship, so I never really had like that dynamic of like this is a father and walking you through what it looks like to grow up and become a man.
Yeah.
Right. But I always knew that something I really wanted to be was like a good husband and father. Like from a young age, I was like, and my closest relationship then with a parent was with my mother growing up, so I always had this sort of defense of women.
Same here.
There's something
Mhm.
built into me that was like, you look out for women. You know, somebody's making somebody uncomfortable. You make sure she feels safe. You know,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I mean, I live in the country now. It's a whole different ball game. But in the city, it got to the point where I felt like, they don't want you to do that. They're gonna scream at you if you try to like step in and be a gentleman. Not everybody. That's probably
Yeah.
not even most people.
No, I
But
totally get
you
that.
get gun shy.
I
In the
I get
country,
that.
it's like it's a whole different ball game. Like people are more, for the most part, just down to earth.
Yeah.
Like they really expect you to be that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, you do this and that, and that's what that's what a man looks
I
like.
would
And
say, like, yeah, the feminism thing. I agree that women need to, have a piece of what's going on in society. But when it comes down to the protection and everything, some women are bad. I met some badass women in
oh,
jujitsu,
I don't doubt it
so
for
they
a
got their
second.
game. But most women that talk about feminism and completely support it, I think Bill Burr, comedian, kind of said that they like to cherry pick what they like to have. But no, I don't want to pay for the first date or the dates. You pay for the dates. That you be the man on that one, and I'll be the feminist for this. But when it comes to the protection, there's no denying it. If you got a man by your side, if you're the strongest feminist or even an MMA fighter, we've seen what happened when um, transgender women fight men. It doesn't work out so well. So to be a protector, that's in our nature. It's in our blueprints. So what you're talking about, I think, totally makes sense. And if we can provide that, you know, that's glorious. I don't know. I'm sidetracking a little bit. Take over.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, one thing I was gonna think too, you were saying about how my wife and I set this plan, made it, it's like it wasn't always easy, right? Like she didn't want to go back to work when we had our first kid, but we really were like, we got to stay the course,
Yeah.
and it worked out, and it's been really good for us. Um, but it's like she homeschools all her kids. So while our youngest is not formally started yet, she'll be 4 in December, but they kind of they're exposed to it the whole time, and so she's going through all of that. She's keeping the house. She's it's the order of the home,
Yeah.
and it's a homemaker, and it's like it's an interesting thing because she had a career she went to college for. She got great grades at Georgia Tech, and like much more education than I have.
Yeah.
And she had a better job. Well, when we met, I didn't have any money. I was like living in South Minneapolis in a house where we take people off the street and stuff. It was a
Yeah.
whole like I had just come back from the Dominican Republic. That's a whole other thing. We could trail
Nice.
off on a bunch of stuff, um but yeah, I had like $300 a month coming in donations so I could live in this house. Ate donated food. I had given my car away to somebody. Like it just wasn't so when she met me and she's like, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for." I was like, "Well, it's not my money, I didn't have any." So,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I mean, we just started from the get go. Like, this is what we're all about. I asked her to marry me 6 weeks in, and not 6 weeks after I met her, but 6 weeks after I asked her out,
Yeah.
and that was like a month and a half after I met her or something. So, um, we went from like meeting each other to married to moving into our house that we bought and having our first kid a week later. Like that was a 2 year span from the first time we met to like have a house and a baby, um, and that's a whole other thing that came up as an interesting thing in that dynamic, and a tough thing in that dynamic is like I just didn't handle getting married very well.
Really?
I kind of thought I had my stuff together, but I
Oh,
kind of had my stuff together when I could keep people at arm's length.
got
That's
it.
kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So, as we started having conflict after we got married, I didn't really know what to do with it. And then I started feeling like, oh, if I'm struggling, so like I could go back years earlier and high school and stuff. I did a lot of drugs. I hung out with a lot of untoward people. Shortly after high school, really bad relationship.
Yeah.
Got really got really dark. Uh, First time in my life, it's like I used to be able to get whatever drugs I wanted. I couldn't get alcohol, but I had quick access to alcohol. I started drinking more, and that was like an off button for me because my brain kind of goes all the time, and so I was kind of like, oh, like I can just mute this. And it was in a bad
Calm the
direction.
noise.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it was in a bad direction, but then I kind of pulled out of it, and I got really in touch with my faith and that kind of stuff, which led to the Dominican Republic, then to the city, then to getting married. and early in the marriage, I started, okay, I'm gonna have a couple drinks, take the edge off or whatever, and then it's like I kind of saw that was bothering her if I was drinking a little too much, and so I was like, okay, I'll try to keep it on the down low, basically.
Yeah.
Well, that eventually veers into I'm hiding drinking,
Yep.
you know, and that would have been like the first about 4 years or so of my marriage, where I probably during the course of the first year where I kind of sunk into that, and then really just it was really rough,
So like
a
for
lot of
3 years,
yeah.
you tried to wait till like she went to bed or something, and then
Yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah. Or if she was gone and I was going to be home all day or something, and it would be kind of like I'd drink, and then I'd
That'd
be
be hard
like,
for anybody.
and then I'd like be having a beer when she came home, so I was trying to cover it up, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. It's not good, um, and it just, I think that there was a handful of times where she'd find me passed out on the couch in the middle of the night or something, and then there'd be a
How
little bit
did
of a
this happen? Yeah.
little confrontation about it or something, and then I'd try, okay, well, I'm gonna quit. I know I shouldn't be drinking like this, and maybe I'd quit for a while, but I'd go back to it because I just had a lot of stuff I wasn't dealing with, and and I know people always say, oh, you got to do it for you, or whatever it was. I hit a point where I was like, she's gonna leave, and I could go back to all kinds of baggage from
Yeah.
childhood,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
whatnot. She's gonna leave. She's not gonna be here. Um, and the last time she woke me up passed out on the couch, it was like I can always, if I talk about it, I can see it clear as day. And I was like, was looking at her, and I thought, she's not mad. She's sad and scared. She meant it when we got married, and she said, I do, and to death do us part. Like, this was all real. She's not going anywhere. This is not fair. She can't live this way. You know. That's when I started dealing with it. And I didn't go to treatment. I did AA for a while. Mm, it can be really helpful for some people, but I think for most people that AA sort of becomes like a loose religion,
Yeah.
and it's kind of it's like you're going through all the motions, and a lot of people, it just felt to me like what they were telling me was, I've been sober for 20 years and it's one day at a time, and I was like, I can't live the rest of my life that way.
Yeah.
I gotta have some triumph, and then I did Celebrate Recovery for a while. I know I'm taking up plenty of time rambling
Oh,
here,
good.
but that's kind of like AA with a lot of scripture loaded back in. So AA kind of says the God of your understanding. When that was written down, what they meant was probably like any Christians and like maybe even Jews can do this. That was the kind of like,
Oh, yeah. Selective.
so it was the God of your understanding wasn't what it is today, which is like it can be that doorknob, or it can be the ocean, or that big oak tree out front, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this vague spirituality to it, and the principles are sound. They're all like biblical principles that
Yeah.
AA is founded in. So Celebrate Recovery kind of builds that back into it. Basically, did that for a while. It was really good, but what eventually worked, I mean, what sustained my change was like getting really good relationships going with men, like men who wanted good things for me, men who I would commit to being open to, telling them how I'm doing, where I'm struggling, what I'm hopeful for, what I'm afraid of, all that kind of stuff. And so that was like a small group thing from my church that I was going to, and those are just awesome relationships.
That's totally, guys, men of values. Establishing relationships. I've done it through jujitsu or just friends, where you can talk about stuff, you feel comfortable with them. If a guy chokes you out and damn near snaps your arm, you can talk to him about anything, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to have the relationships, because a lot of us grew up without dads in the house, right? So I don't want to say we crave that connection, but when we have it, we appreciate it. It doesn't matter where it comes from, just so we can have that and connect. It's cool if we love our mother and she loves us and everything's fine and good, but when you have that masculine relationship, it's almost like having a mentor. I don't know, even if it's somebody that's at your level, just to be able to talk to them and they give you back their advice on what they think you should do. It's better than you sitting by yourself trying to deal with all your problems. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Kind of sidestepping again because I saw a point. How much time we have?
2:45.
2:45. When did you meet your wife? What year was it?
Yeah, that was 2008.
2008. So
Yeah.
you built this whole life since 2008 through the turbulence. maybe we'll save this for the next video, but I'm curious as far as like dating or trying to meet somebody that has their head on their shoulders is pretty difficult for me and a lot of people I know. Josh found a good one apparently, or you
Yeah.
work through the stuff
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll touch on that again in a separate video. But thank you for joining. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
I
Thanks
mean
for having me.
that's a lot of deep stuff.
Yeah, I told you before, man. I don't play. I just
Very
kind of go
good.
right in. But
It
yeah.
does tie into living a masculine life. I mean, masculine is different for everybody, right? But like what he represents for me is, I would say, the things that you have done with your life have been more masculine than me, right? No, I mean, I could lift weights, I could, whatever,
Yeah.
do jujitsu. That's all superficial crap. When it comes down to it, you took care of business, man, and I see that in you. And it started. I started noticing that when you paid off your house, and then you made decisions beyond that to build a better life.
Hmm.
And you can go shoot guns too. I can't do that here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're at 30 minutes. Pretty close.
Yep.
There we go. So I can hit stop now. Appreciate you joining us, and maybe we'll do another episode, short one or long one, whatever. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys joining us, Men of Values.
Yeah.